Hello everyone, this is Kestrel Raptorial. On the evening of January 8th, 2019, only 3 days ago, President of the United States of America, Donald J. Trump, gave an amazingly well-structured and heartfelt address to the people of America, explaining the government shutdown situation that we are in, and why America needs a southern border wall desperately. Today, he is traveling to the southern border to speak from that location directly. Now, if you will remember, controlling immigration was one of the deciding topics in the 2016 American presidential election, when Donald Trump, the Republican candidate, spoke truthfully about American people's concerns, at least the concerns of Americans who had an informed and realistic perspective on the issue, while leftist candidate Hillary Clinton only talked about how we should be nice and fair to everyone and not make anyone feel bad or feel alienated, despite calling half of all Americans a basket of deplorables. And it was this blatant hypocrisy, in addition to her plain identity politics and unwillingness to address the real concerns of people who knew something about national and international issues and politics, that won Donald Trump the presidency. He won that fair and square despite all the tantrums the Democrats threw and have been throwing for over 2 years now. And President Trump, the night he won the 2016 American presidential election, really by a hair, in his victory acceptance speech said, "This politics stuff is nasty," and yeah, it absolutely is. No mistaking that. It is a nasty, nasty game, politics. And it is why so many people who are motivated by an actual inner conscience, a desire to do the best for their country, to be honest, and sometimes say that some sacrifices and some really tough decisions are going to have to be made within a very narrow time span. And that, for example, government spending and government programs are going to have to be cut. The people who have the moral fiber, or who would have it, to say that are the people who do not seek a role in politics because the whole game is so underhanded, and the entire country will just point every single flamethrower they have in the direction of your head, from which will hinder anything good actually being done. Now, despite the admitted truth that Trump's personality can be very polarizing, and that the Republicans definitely should have made a greater effort to cut government spending and build the wall when they had the majority, I believe there were a couple of attempts, and they were advised that building the wall would lead to civil unrest. Well, the problem is we have civil unrest anyway, so we need it built anyway. All this is true. But here's what's also an undeniable truth. Donald Trump was willing to give up his billionaire lifestyle in order to brave the relentless hellstorm of national and international politics in order to try and save his country from madness and chaos and utter disaster. And a lot of people, both in and outside of politics, have only spat in his face for it. That is not encouraging for America's future. Now, his personality and some of his rhetoric really does land him in some trouble, but as far as his policy goes, he was pretty damn effective in getting the country up and running again. On the evening of January 8th, President Trump addressed the nation. Today, from the Oval Office, he will be doing so from the border itself today. People at home watching from not only all over North America, but hopefully all over the world. I'm going to go through his speech. This video will only be about the speech from the Oval Office that took place on January 8th. I tried to make and upload this video a couple days ago, been having a lot of computer trouble, so I've had to make another attempt today. I'm going to go through his speech, talk about it, and I also highly recommend that you watch his speeches, both of them, in full. The one from the Oval Office is less than 10 minutes long, but it gets to the very core of the matter about the need for a competent plan to manage the massive waves of immigration into the United States. He began by saying, "My fellow Americans, tonight I am speaking to you because there is a growing humanitarian and security crisis at our southern border. Every day, Customs and Border Patrol agents encounter thousands of illegal immigrants trying to enter our country. If that's true, and the credible sources I've heard from and I've looked into support that it is, that has to mean that ICE is working effectively around the clock to do what they can to defend America's southern border, despite them having been, for a long time now, viciously attacked and slandered by a lot of people, many even from their own communities and families." Trump said, "We are out of space to hold them, and we have no way to promptly return them. America proudly welcomes millions of lawful immigrants which enrich our society and contribute to our nation. But all Americans are hurt by uncontrolled illegal migration. It strains public resources and drives down jobs and wages." And this is all true. And him saying among the hardest hit are African Americans and Hispanic Americans, often because those populations are working the lowest wage jobs, often as a result of either choice of their own or as a first step towards climbing the income ladder, as you would say. Everything he's saying here is true, and it's all been argued so many times by so many people before. The United States of America and the Western world as a whole has been, to some extent intentionally and to some extent unintentionally, an economic magnet to migrants seeking a better quality of life than that which they lived in their home countries. Now that's okay when such a country, like the Western countries, is attracting people of good morals who come to work productively and contribute to stable families, stable jobs, a stable economy, and the principle of the West that you do not get to use force or violence against another person or people to pay for your own good quality of life. It becomes a real problem that must be addressed the day a country loses the ability to filter out the good people from the violent criminals and gangs and those looking to solely live off the welfare state. And this is our problem, that the second group is now the majority of people that are feeble excuse for a barrier and realistic lacking immigration policy is now letting through. It's a problem that any and every country has to address. And kudos to President Trump for speaking directly to the American people to do just that. He next says that our southern borders are illegal pipelines for vast quantities of illegal drugs, including meth, heroin, cocaine, and fentanyl. Every week, 300 of our citizens are killed by heroin alone, 90% of which floods across our southern border. More Americans will die from drugs this year than the entire Vietnam War. In the last 2 years, ICE officers made 266,000 arrests of aliens with criminal records, including those charged or convicted of 100,000 assaults, 30,000 sex crimes. There's a difference there, but these are in the tens of thousands. So it's so funny. Well, no, let me be clear. It's not funny. Funny in the sense of hypocritical, that we get all these messages about, from the left, actually from the left in particular, except they use it hypocritically, that violence and sexual assault crimes are so bad. I mean, if you remember what they tried to destroy Brett Kavanaugh's life on is completely made up sexual assault charges and nearly destroyed his whole family and his life. We get so many messages, even if the accusations, and they often are false, that we can't tolerate sexual misconduct. Yet they will do nothing to address these tens of thousands of sex crimes coming into our country from third world countries. So let me go over the numbers again. In the last 2 years, this is from President Trump's speech, ICE officers made 266,000 arrests of aliens with criminal records, including those charged or convicted of 100,000 assaults, 30,000 sex crimes, and 4,000 violent killings. Over the years, thousands of Americans have been brutally killed by those who illegally enter our country, and thousands more lives will be lost if we don't act right now. All right, so let's do a simple math problem. A year is 365 days. 266,000 arrests divided by 365 days. Over the past 2 years, and we haven't had a leap year since 2016, that's an average of 728 arrests each and every single day. That is a gigantic length for our brave American defenders to be going to protect our country and our families, despite the hostility aimed towards them from the people who say, oh, we should just let in everyone, and yet have no plan to filter out and repel the rapists and murderers coming in along with the good and virtuous people. And this is what President Trump addresses. His very next point, he next says, quoting again, "This is a humanitarian crisis, a crisis of the heart and a crisis of the soul. Last month, 20,000 migrant children were illegally brought into the United States, a dramatic increase. Used as human pawns by vicious coyotes and ruthless gangs. 1 in 3 women are sexually assaulted on the dangerous trek up through Mexico.